The Elixir of Life. Imagine I give you a choice. You can have a magical liquid that promises to give you immorality, or you can have something that comes directly from nature. Which one would you choose? For thousands of years, human beings have searched for a magical substance that could make them live forever. But what if I tell you the real elixir of life is already around us? We see it every day. We drink it. We cook with it. We use it to grow food. We use it to survive. Yes, I am talking about water. But what does C.V. Raman call water? The elixir of life. How can something as ordinary as water be more powerful than an imaginary magical substance? And what does water have to do with the Nile Valley, agriculture, soil erosion, forests, and even electricity? That's exactly what we are going to understand today. Welcome back to the 5-minute revision. Today we are learning The Elixir of Life by C.V. Raman. By the end of this video, you will understand the complete lesson in simple language, the important ideas, the exam points, and the questions you must prepare. And remember, the free question and answers PDF is available through the link in the description. If this video helps you, subscribe to the 5-minute revision and share it with your friends. Let's begin the chapter. The author of this lesson is Sir C.V. Raman. He was a famous Indian scientist who had a strong interest in science from his childhood. He became famous for his discovery called the Raman effect. For this discovery, he received the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1930. The textbook also notes that he was knighted by King George and later received the Bharat Ratna. Now let's understand the title. What is an elixir? It is imagined as a magical liquid that can prolong life indefinitely. In traditional stories, people searched for a magical substance called Amrita that could make them immortal. But Sir C.V. Raman says, why search for an imaginary magical liquid when the real substance that sustains life is right in front of us? Water. Therefore, the title, The Elixir of Life, refers to water. The entire lesson is basically an explanation of one powerful idea. To prove the importance of water, C.V. Raman gives us a beautiful example. Imagine standing at a place between the Libyan desert and the Nile Valley in Egypt. Look in one direction. You see a huge area of sand. There is hardly any green vegetation. There is no visible abundance of life. Now turn around. Suddenly you see a completely different world. The Nile Valley is green. It is fertile. It is densely populated. There is vegetation everywhere. So the writer asks, what created this amazing difference? The answer is water. The river Nile flows for thousands of miles before reaching the Mediterranean. Its water makes the land fertile and supports life. This gives us our first major point. The writer then explains something even more interesting. Geologists say that the soil of the Nile Valley itself was created by the river. During floods, the river carries fine soil called slit. This slit is deposited on the land over thousands of years. This process helped create fertile soil. Therefore, the writer says that Egypt was made by its river. Its ancient civilization was created and sustained by the life-giving water of the Nile. So students, remember this connection. Nile, water, slit, fertile soil, agriculture, civilization. This is an important chain for your examination. C.V. Raman now moves from science to beauty. He says there is almost nothing that adds as much beauty to the countryside as water. Think about a small stream flowing over rocks. Think about a pond beside a road where cattle come to drink. Think about a full lake or tank during the rainy season. Water makes the landscape beautiful. The writer especially talks about rain tanks in South India. These tanks are important for agriculture. When they are full, they become a beautiful sight. The water gives us an interesting comparison. He compares water in a landscape to the eyes in a human face. Why? Because water reflects the mood of the surroundings. When the sun shines, water looks bright and cheerful. When the sky becomes cloudy, the water can look dark. So, water is not only useful, it also adds beauty to nature. The textbook describes full rain-fed tank as a cheering sight. Now, we come to an important scientific point. One remarkable property of water is its ability to carry slit. Slit means very fine particles of soil, sand, and mud carried by flowing water. When rain falls, water flows over the land. It picks up tiny particles of soil. These particles remain suspended in the water. That is why the water is rain fed tanks can have different colors. The color depends on the nature of the soil in the catchment area. A catchment area is the area from which rainwater flows in a particular river or water body. After fresh rainfall, more soil enters the water, so the color of the water can become especially vivid. This shows us that water is not just a liquid that we drink. Water is constantly interacting with the land. It carries soil, it deposits soil, it shapes the earth, and this brings us to an important problem: soil erosion. What is soil erosion? Soil is extremely important. Why? Because soil is the foundation of agriculture, but water can have two different effects. Water can be beneficial, it can help from soil, but under certain conditions, water can also become destructive, it can wash away the soil. This process is called soil erosion. The writer says soil erosion is a serious problem, especially in many parts of India. It can happen gradually. At first, the damage may not even be noticed, but later, the land may develop deep gullies and ravines. These are channels created by running water. When soil is continuously washed away, agriculture can become impossible. So, what causes soil erosion? The main cause mentioned by Raman is sudden bursts of excessively heavy rain. Heavy rainfall creates a large amount of runoff. The water flows rapidly over the land and carries soil away. But heavy rain is not the only cause. The writer gives several contributing factors: slope of the land, removal of natural vegetation, absence of checks on flowing water, ruts through which water flows rapidly. How can soil erosion be prevented? Now, the important question. If soil erosion is dangerous, what can we do? C.V. Raman gives several methods. First, the land is prepared in different levels. This reduces the speed of flowing water. Second, bunds help check the flow of water. Third, crops are cultivated along the same level of elevation. This helps reduce the destructive movement of water. Fourth, plants protect the soil. Their presence helps reduce erosion. The writer says the important thing is to stop the water as early as possible before it gains enough momentum to become destructive. Now, here is an important exam question. How does preventing soil erosion serve a double purpose? The answer is it protects the soil and it helps conserve water. When water is prevented from flowing away rapidly, more water remains where it is needed on and inside the soil. Therefore, prevent soil erosion, conserve soil, conserve water. Water and Indian agriculture. Now, Raman connects water with agriculture. He says, water is the basics of all life. Every animal and every plant contains water. No normal psychological activity can take place without water playing an essential role. Plants especially depends on moisture in the soil. and human beings depend on plants and agriculture. Therefore, water conservation is fundamental to human welfare. The writer then makes an important observation about India. Much of Indian agriculture depends on seasonal rainfall. This creates a problem. If the rainfall fails or if it becomes irregular, agriculture suffers. That is why Indian agriculture is very sensitive to changes in rainfall. And here we see another important connection. Irregular rainfall plus soil erosion are closely connected. If we prevent soil erosion, we can also conserve water. So, the same method can solve two problems. This is why water management is so important. Harnessing rivers and conserving water. Now, imagine a huge amount of rain falling on the land. Where does all the rainwater go? Much of it runs away. It enters streams and rivers. Eventually, much of it reaches the sea. Once it reaches the sea, that water is no longer directly available for use by the land. So, Raman says we must collect the utilized rainwater. He also discusses the importance of harnessing rivers. Harnessing means controlling and putting something to useful purpose. India has many rivers, but much of their water flows away. Therefore, managing these water resources is a major national problem. The writer believes that with courage and well planned action, areas that are currently scrub jungle could potentially be transformed into fertile and prosperous regions. So, water conservation is not only about drinking water, it is connected with agriculture, land, transport, electricity, rural development, and the overall economy. Now, Raman connects the water with forest. He says one urgent need is afforestation. Afforestation means planting trees in areas of land. The writer talks about developing what he calls civilized forest. These are systematically planted, man made forests rather than wild and unwanted jungles. Why are these forests important? They have several advantages. First, they check soil erosion. Trees and vegetation help protect the soil. Second, they conserve rainfall. They help prevent water from simply flowing away. Third, they can become a source of wealth. The writer says systematical plantation can benefit the country economically as well. Now connect everything we have learned. Trees protect soil, conserve water, support agriculture, help the economy. This is exactly how the lesson moves from a simple discussion about water to a much larger discussion about national development. C.V. Raman now talks about another advantage of water management. Water can help with transportation. He says canals and rivers can provide a cheap form of internal transport using boats. But there is another major advantage. When water supplies are properly harvested and managed, they can also support hydroelectric power. Hydroelectric power means generating electricity using water. Why is this important? Because electricity can transform rural life. It can improve the rural economy, and importantly, electricity can make it easier to tap underground water that can help overcome problems caused by irregular or water supplies. So, once again, water is connected to many parts of human life. Water is not simply something we drink, it supports life, agriculture, transport, electricity, rural development. Now we reach the final paragraph, and that is beautiful conclusion. Raman says that water is common in one sense. Why? Because it is everywhere. But in another sense, water is extremely uncommon. Why? Because it has amazing properties. Those properties are responsible for a unique part to maintain animal and plant life. Therefore, studying water scientifically is extremely important. And the water says that the nature and properties of water are still a rich field of scientific research. So, the lesson comes back to its original idea. human beings searched for a magical elixir, but the true wonder is something much closer, it is water. This is why the title is so meaningful. Let's revise the complete lesson in under 1 minute. C.V. Raman begins with the idea of an imaginary elixir that can give immortality. He says the real elixir is water. He gives the example of Nile Valley. The Nile's water creates fertile land and supports civilization. Water also adds beauty to nature through streams, ponds, and rain-fed tanks. Water carries slit and helps shape soil, but excessive water flow can cause soil erosion. Water conservation is essential because Indian agriculture depends heavily on seasonal rainfall. Raman then discusses river harnessing, afforestation, waterways, and hydroelectric power. Finally, he says water may be common, but its properties are extraordinary. Therefore, water is the real elixir of life. Finally, a small revision. So, students, if you remember only 5 things from this chapter, remember this. Water is the real elixir of life. The Nile created and sustained the fertility of the Nile Valley. Soil erosion is a serious threat to agriculture. Water and soil must be conserved. Water management can support agriculture, transport, electricity, and rural development. And remember this simple chain: water, life, soil, agriculture, civilization. If this explanation helped you, don't forget to subscribe to the 5 minute revision. Share this video with your classmates and friends who are preparing for exam, and check the description for the free PDF. The questions are designed for revision and the answers will help you prepare for examination writing. Don't just watch, understand, revise, practice, and then score. This is the 5 minute revision. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep learning, keep revising, and keep believing in yourself.